I can do this. I can do this. And that feeling, I can be this person that I want to be. I can at least start down that road. It was just the most exhilarating time in my life.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You, Yourself, and Why, a self-discovery and wellness podcast dedicated to the daily practice of meeting yourself so that every day you can be the latest and greatest version of who you really are for the people that matter to you most. My name is Steve Weigardner, and I am your host. So in the previous episode, you met my health coach, Erica. We discussed her journey and how she truly found herself. Also, we discussed some of the programs that she offers. You can look back to that episode if you're interested, and you can find out what coaching can mean for you. So, if you guys remember in episode 3, I read a text message from a friend who I did not reveal, but she's here with me today. And she has been so supportive of this new journey of mine. It's really been such a wonderful add-on to my experience. It's brought us closer, and she has an incredible story of her own as well. And I'm just going to give you a brief background. So after graduating from Skidmore College with a degree in mathematics and business, she went to Wall Street in the mid-'80s as a junior bond trader. After 3 years of cutting her teeth into New York City, she moved to London to train in the overseas market for 3 years. Upon returning to New York City in the early 90s, she joined several large investment banks for about 10 years. She got swept up in the competitive, fast-paced, frantic world of a New York City trading floor, involved in drugs, alcohol, and the tremendous pressure of only being as good as your last trade. In 2002, with 18-month-old twins at home, everything fell apart for her. She wasn't doing anything right, and something had to change. She left Wall Street for 6 months, but ended up never going back, as she found herself building a life of sobriety, education, and a new life for herself and her daughters. Currently, she's the director of business development strategies for a tech construction company and has been sober for 15 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Aimee Ventura.
Yay! Hello, everybody. Hello, Stephen. Thank you for including me in this incredible journey that you are on.
Thank you for wanting to be included.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. It's unbelievable.
I'm so happy that you're here with me and here with everyone. So I want to start off with what's your background? Like, how did this all begin for you, this crazy fast-paced life of yours?
I did not grow up in a turbulent home, or at least my perception of it was not that it was a turbulent home. I did have alcoholism in my family, and I kind of graze over that in my mind. But the reality is I had loving parents and a loving family who gave me everything, and I was striving for something more. I guess maybe I was just striving for drama. I was always looking for drama and for excitement. And, it was the 80s, and Wall Street was where you went for all of that, not only for money, but for excitement and risk, and to kind of become this incredibly dynamic, risk-taking person, which I was not growing up. And so that really appealed to me, to be this person who was taking all these risks and doing all of these crazy things and being out there in the world. That's what that meant to me. It was a successful journey, I would say, financially certainly, but also just got me to that level of excitement that I thought I wanted. But there is an inevitable crash down that comes with that. It's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable life. And, I think I lived it to the fullest with abandon, I will say, but all things must end. And it really ended for me with a kind of, I'll say, catastrophic failure to meet my goals, to be the person I wanted to be. I was really just not the person I wanted to be at the end. And I didn't really have much of a choice. I wasn't really in a place where I could make that life work. So I had to make another choice for myself or perish really at the end of the day.
So when you were in college, everyone in finance or business majors that are looking to end up on Wall Street, that's their goal, that's their mission. They encourage one another to do that. Is that what your college experience was like? It's a man's world also.
Yes, well, that was a big part of it. I will equate it to the tech world today, where everybody who's cool or wants to be cool wanted to go to Wall Street in the 80s. It was high flying. It was, the equivalent of going to work for Google or Facebook today. There was money, without a doubt. You were chasing money, but in college, there were people. Yeah, I mean, I went to a pretty kind of liberal arts college, and there was lots of artsy people. But that was just my goal. My goal was to be in that world. I can remember very clearly the first day walking onto my very first Wall Street trading floor, and this is before there was really computers. So we're not talking about the kind of technology that there is today. But I walked on and I just felt this rush of adrenaline. And I was like, oh my God, this is where I need to be. I don't think everybody has that reaction to it, but I certainly did. And I just knew that this is where I needed to be. And yes, it was mostly men. I mean, there was, I don't know the percentages, but I would say 90-10. And everybody was yelling and everybody was fluffing their chest. And I just wanted to be part of that. That was my drug at the time.
The quintessential trading floor that we know it to be, even though we know that there's technology now that has changed it, but the papers flying, was it like that?
Well, yeah, no, and it was papers flying, but it was also tempers flying, people just screaming at each other and language and you could smoke in those days. So it was like a big billowing smoke cloud and bad behavior. I don't really know if it's appropriate for me to go into
we can get into
behavior.
I'm thinking of Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I hope you never had to shave your head.
I remember being, I think I was 22 and this was when I was in London, but every time anybody had a birthday, they would bring a prostitute in and they would have sex right on the trading desk, sometimes next to me. And I was literally, it was always the same woman. She was like their woman. And I was not able to have a reaction because having a reaction would have meant I was weak and I couldn't handle it. And so I just had to be like, whatever, or into it, and they were more interested in my reaction than they were to what was actually going on. It was like shock value. Everything was about shock value. What can I do to shock other people? And what can I do to just be like really the worst version of myself possible? So I kind of really grew up in that whole arena and I became incredibly callous to those types of behaviors. They were completely appropriate in my mind because the bar was so low. And that stayed with me for the rest of my life as far as my relationship with men. I hate to say it. I mean, I like men. I'm not, but I really got to know men really well. And
I think that's like a very distinct representation of a specific breed of man. So being a woman on Wall Street, you said when the prostitute came and was having sex on the desk next to you while you were trying to get work done. I mean, they were doing it as much to haze you and see what you were willing to withstand. I imagine that because it was such a small population of female that they were constantly being tested on, all right, can this woman hang? Is she going to be willing to put up with this egregious behavior? Like, let's get it really like disgusting and make it as difficult and see when they break. Was there a lot of that? Because that's how I'm picturing it.
Yes. And I happened to be the only woman, I was a girl really on that desk at that time. And so there were days when it was entirely about trying to get me to, push me over the edge. I remember another day when they decided that I was in London. So this one particular fellow had not been circumcised. He was, an adult, and they decided to circumcise him on the desk because you never stepped off the desk. You could go to the bathroom, but you ate there, you did everything there. So they decided to circumcise him. And then they hung his foreskin on a bulletin board, and I had to look at it shrivel up and for days. And I mean, it was just grotesque.
And I'm sure as a woman, you were thinking it was almost like legitimizing you if you could withstand it.
Yes, I definitely became bring
girl.
it on.
Right. I'm tough as nails. Yeah.
Bring it on. And that became kind of the mantra for my entire life was bring it on. I can handle anything. And that turned out not to be the case.
Was it shocking to you in the beginning? Did you grow a thicker skin?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not going to act like I didn't like it. I felt like I was part of a world that few women get to be part of. And I felt very, very proud of that. It's strange when I talk about it now, but I had a lot of pride.
I mean, so did you have mostly female friends that were in the industry, or did you have a lot of friends that were teachers and
No. Well, that's the other thing that happens is you don't want any other females around. You want to be the alpha female. And so the few other women that there were around, we were threatened by each other because we wanted to be the only one, like the queen bee, and the only one who could, it was competition.
Right.
So
and was everyone pretty?
Well, I will say,
prettiest.
I will no, but I will say there weren't typically unattractive women hired in those positions. It really was not about how smart you were, although you had to be, you had to have a head on your shoulders. But yes, there was a lot of beautiful women who were there for eye candy. Most of them were like administrative assistants and things like that. There was a glass ceiling without a doubt. I mean, I was hell bent on busting through that.
So did your parents know about what was going on in your life? Were you like meeting them for Thanksgiving dinner and just throwing the foreskin? Hey, look what I got from work today.
No, my parents did not have any idea. They knew that I was on Wall Street, of course, and they were very proud of me, but they did not have a perception of what it was really like. They had a perception. I mean, the Wolf of Wall Street had not come out yet, but Gordon Gekko and the movie Wall Street, where everyone's yelling and shouting and everyone's making a lot of money and it's all very glamorous and cutthroat. That was their perception. And there was a lot of truth in that, but they were really proud of me and supportive of me. But I had a very old fashioned father, and he used to say to me, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to settle down? I think settling down to him meant, marrying a dentist from Toledo and having a family and a house in the suburbs. And I was nowhere near ever doing that, I thought. So they thought I was successful and they were proud of that, but I did not share.
Did you have friends that were working in other industries?
Yes.
And then when you guys had happy hour and they were complaining about clients and you were just were you able to relate to their?
No, I'll be honest, I felt far superior to anything that they were doing. I was like, yeah, okay, you can complain about your desk is not in the right place or something. And I was like in this world.
I have a vagina on my desk.
Exactly. They didn't understand my world. I didn't want to understand theirs. I was never, ever envious of anybody else's job because I just thought I was exactly where I wanted to be.
Did you have like a mentor at work or someone like a Matthew McConaughey taking you out for lunch and then offering you a bump of Coke?
It really wasn't about, who I was. And it was really about, I was surrounded by men. It was a very highly charged atmosphere. And whenever anybody offered to take me under their wing per se, I always knew what that meant. And they were not all that subtle about what that meant. So no, the answer is it was not, I had no mentors as far as people who were really kind of looking to guide my career. But that's just what it was like. Nobody had mentors. It was every person for themselves. It was not a team environment. You are your own person out there in the battle.
Wow.
It wasn't
no
a team.
allies.
No.
Wow.
But not just me.
Right.
Nobody.
No allies for anyone.
You kick the person next to you.
It was Hunger Games.
It was Katniss.
You are Katniss.
I'm Katniss.
You got out alive, so.
I won the game.
Yep.
And at the time, I got swept up in, going out a lot. I was going out, I don't know, 5 nights a week probably. And then, cocaine became part of my life. And that kept me going. And that made me really, really like upped my confidence level. When I was out, it sustained me, it gave me the ability to go, 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 go. And it was rampant on Wall Street. So I just joined in that, and that became something that kept me going, but also really made me feel invincible. As anybody who's gotten swept up in that, you really do just feel like you can do anything. Not only can do anything, but you will do anything. There are no barriers. And that was the world I was living in. So this was kind of a natural thing for me to, and listen, it was recreational for a few years. And then it just became who I was. I couldn't really go out without being high. And of course, the drinking was part of that too. They kind of go hand in hand, and it just became who I was. Really just, it took over, and that's not sustainable for any kind of long period of time. But I found myself in these periods where I would be wild and crazy and do anything and sleep with anyone. And, kind of who's next, who's up next for that night. And it sounds like I probably didn't have a lot of respect for myself, but I really did. I just was like empowered. I was like, this is my power. I'm a woman here. People say all the time, like, oh, it must be so hard to be a woman on Wall Street. No, actually, it's really easy, because you just have to know how to use your power and let it empower you instead of feel like it's holding you back. And my way of doing that was I'm just going to sleep my way through pretty much anybody that I want to. And so my point is that I had moments where I was like, oh God, I really need to legitimize myself here. I'm known as this person. And so I would enter into a relationship with somebody who I deemed to be legitimate, as someone who was not that crazy guy and who was maybe married or just living a different life than I was. And I would have these periods with these relationships where I was like, look at me, I'm legitimate. I'm dating Joe Smith, or not his name, obviously, but so I must be okay and legit because I can get this normal guy. And of course, that would never last because that's not really what I wanted. And then I would flip back into the craziness, and then I would do it again. And a year later, I would do it again. And so I was flipping back and forth from these men that were more comfortable for me because they were crazy as I was, and into these men who I have no idea what they thought they were doing with me, but they maybe they wanted to be a little crazier in their life, and I needed a little bit more legitimacy. So we worked out for each other, but I flipped back and forth from being good girl to bad girl, and now I'm going to be a good girl again. And it was crazy that I was feeling like this person was going to make me more legitimate. I mean, I had no idea who I was, and I was losing the grip on any sort of balance in my life and any sort of feeling that I was going in a direction that was linear. It was non-linear.
So of the few girlfriends that you did have, were they all doing that as well? Or were people kind of like, you're really acting like a slut?
No, my girlfriends were all getting married, having kids. I mean, at this point we're in our 20s, 30s, and everyone's doing what people do. They're coupling up, and they're starting families, and they're moving to the suburbs or staying in the city, but taking that natural linear route. And I'm not saying that that's the right route. I'm saying that was the kind of what most people do. And I was like, not for me. I'm just I have this high flying life, and I was traveling, and I was, I thought it was just exactly what I wanted. And so I had my friends were falling by the wayside, and I was, going to their weddings and being crazy and acting.
Having sex with half the groomsmen.
Yeah. That was me.
Who's next?
Next. And everybody thought I was just crazy. I was just crazy Aimee, and nobody ever expected me to ever be anything but that. And listen, I'm sure there was people talking behind my back, of course, but I always just cracked it up to, they're just jealous because I'm so doing what I want and living my life. And they were, I got kind of like, puh to them, like they're just settling and I'm living it to the fullest. I felt like I was just living life large, and that's what I wanted more than anything.
Were there ever times where you questioned what you were doing? Like, did you have moments alone on a Tuesday night where you went into a pint of ice cream and felt like a whore?
Never. I mean, the pint of ice cream, yes.
Right.
But I never.
But you're like, I'm the whore.
I genuinely thought that I was doing exactly what I wanted to do without any boundaries. And the drugs helped me help blur those boundaries for me.
Well, you also probably had a lot of money too, right? Were you living much better off than your peers?
My friends were the people on the trading floor with me, and the money was crazy.
Bank, yeah.
The money was crazy. So we all that became my reality. I did exactly what I wanted to. I bought exactly what I wanted to. There was never a moment where I was like, oh, I love that $2,000 bag. I'm going to save up for it. I was like, no, I'm buying that shit right now because I can. So there was that. Of course,
I'm sure that legitimized everything that you were doing.
Of course it did. But of course you live to your means, don't you? So I was living I had a good income, but I was living in an expensive life. I was flying to the Hamptons on the weekends. I was, God forbid I drive, even though I had the Porsche in the garage in the city, but I was like, I'm flying to the Hamptons. I remember that we had a shoe shine guy who came around on the trading floor, a super nice, like older, gentlemanly black man. And he would come around and shine the guy's shoes because they couldn't leave the desk. So just to show you that it's not all bad. His son was unable to afford college. He was looking for scholarships. So literally all of these guys on this floor got together and chipped in and paid for his college.
Wow.
We all
so
paid
nice.
for the. So yeah. So these are not horrible people. They're as much a victim of their circumstances, but very generous and did things like that.
Do you think that's more about them?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, not to diminish what they did in this particular case for this particular boy. I mean, I don't know where he is today, but he got a college education paid for. But yes, it made us, I shouldn't say them because it was me. It made us feel better about what we were doing and how we were living our lives.
Right. It becomes like a dick measuring contest. Like, I have more disposable income to throw to this charity or this charitable cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to do it and I'm going to feel good, but I'm also going to feel empowered.
Absolutely.
That I can just
and
throw
justified.
money. Right. And that I'm a decent human being because of this.
It makes up for all the bad stuff I'm doing.
So everything seems like it was going really well, this lifestyle. You know what? I remember what you were going to talk about when we were earlier. You said you couldn't remember what you were going to mention. That when you had the most money.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say earlier?
So I'm trying to think of the year.
We're in the 90s.
Well, we're in the 90s, but now we're in the late 90s, maybe 99. And, I was making, by anyone's idea of success, a lot of money. I mean, I was in the 7 figures. But
oh my God.
Yeah, I was making a lot of money, but that wasn't a lot. It wasn't even a lot of money.
Wow.
That's not a lot of money it's kind of the average. But my highest paying year was my most unhappy year by far. And I think our conversation was about, money and financial success does not make you happy. And I have a really hard time explaining that to people now because I work with people and I have people in my life who really are striving to make more so that they can have more. And I try so hard to explain to them that there is not only is there no correlation, there is sometimes an inverse correlation between how much money you have and your happiness. And for me, my most unhappy year, and that has to do with the fact that I was crashing, but I happened to have it was my biggest pay year. I mean, I guess we'll get into it, but when I left Wall Street eventually, that was a huge change in financial security for me. And people are like, how in the world and why in the world would you leave that kind of money to make fractions of it in a new business, because I did realize that there's no happiness in money.
Okay, so can we back up a little bit? Because you were living life and loving everything about it, like being promiscuous, having the disposable income to buy anything you wanted. When did things start to take a turn where you realized that it wasn't the right thing for you any longer?
Well, it was a confluence of events. I was starting to get really, really tired, just physically tired of keeping up this life. And I don't even think I realized it at the time, but I was always exhausted and I was getting older. I mean, by then I was in my 30s and I had been around for a long time. And yes, I had success, but I was also, it's a young business. It really is. And I was getting older and nobody was like, honey, you have to leave. You're old. But I was feeling very tired. I was always either hungover or just exhausted from being out all night. And I was starting to take its toll on me physically and mentally. And it was starting to not be really fun anymore. And I'm starting to really become an addict at this point, as far as needing that. And my life is starting to feel empty. I'll be honest. It's starting to feel like this is great and everything. And I've got this beautiful apartment and I've got a great car and vacations and everything, but I don't have anything that's, to hold on to, nobody or nothing. And then, a big change, a big pivotal point in my life was 9/11. I was down there that day, across the street from the World Trade Center, had a front row seat for all of it. I think that was the pinnacle of my exhaustion. The whole thing was so emotionally traumatic and exhausting to go through. I watched many, many friends die. I went to 30 funerals following those events and buried lots and lots of people that I liked and people that I didn't like, but a lot of real sadness, and also saw things that day down there.
What was going on in your mind that morning?
Well, it started out like any other morning. I went onto the trading floor and we were getting ready for the markets to open. And it was just an ordinary day. The first plane hit and we thought we could see it because from my window, I could see right across to the trade centers. They were literally in front of me. And we were like, whoa, that is just crazy. A plane accident. A plane went into, and it's so far up that we were kind of like on the 14th floor and it was going on up top. And we were like, whoa, I bet you there's like a lot of people who are hurt up there. It just didn't really compute that it was the size that it was. We thought it was like a little passenger plane that had flown in. And then we were watching that when the second plane hit. So we saw the second plane hit. And at that point, it was like, this is not an accident. And everyone was just like, run, run, run. So we ran out of the building. It was like every man for himself. We were just all running. And I was going down a fire stair. So there was no windows and I couldn't really see where I was. And I came out of a emergency door, and I didn't really know where it was going to bring me out. I was in a very big office building, and it brought me out onto West Street, which is the street that separates my building from the trade center. And I ran out onto the street, and there was people running in every direction. And in front of me was a body with its only legs, and the whole upper half of the body was gone. And I remember he was wearing khakis. And he had red socks, and he had no shoes on. So it was a man in khakis, but no. So I saw only the lower half of his body. The upper half was gone, and I just looked at it and I went, "That's not real. That can't be real. Like that's just not real in my eyes." I kind of stood there and I looked up, and there were bodies falling from the sky, and I was like, "Yeah, this is actually happening." And I started running south with everybody. We were just kind of running in the direction of Battery Park. And it was an incredibly surreal thing. I didn't really know what was going on. And I was long out of there. I was already up on like 14th Street when the towers fell. I just started walking up with everybody else. So I wasn't there when the towers themselves fell. And I did get to see that a few days later, but I wasn't there for it. But the whole thing was just numbing. It was completely and utterly numbing. And then the funerals that followed, it was all just, we were just all numb, as everybody was. I was down there, as was tens of thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands of other people. But the days that followed that, we all started to kind of examine the meaning of life in a very real way. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? These people have lost their life. I am just wasting mine in a sea of partying and a job that was really pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things. And I just, it started to all fall apart. My drug use got worse. I needed to numb myself. I needed to not feel all of these things that I was feeling, because this was my life. So there wasn't any ability for me to leave it.
Yeah, it was like an identity crisis, right?
Yeah. And I just went, something's got to change. And several months after that, I was in a relationship with somebody, one of those like legitimizing relationships at the time. And we decided to get pregnant. I was like, what? Like, why would I ever want to do that at the stage in my life that I was at? I was addicted to cocaine. I was an alcoholic. I was working like crazy. But it seemed like a really good idea, really life affirming. So, I got pregnant a few months after that, and had kids, and had two kids at once. And I was like, this is not going to change me. I'm going to be that woman who has the kids and pops them out, goes back to work, and continues my partying life. And I have a nanny full time, and it won't change me at all. Yeah, that didn't really work out that way. But I was in the throes of this coming to an end. It was coming to an end because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle me anymore. I had no idea what I wanted, who I was, what I thought about anything, what I felt about anything. It was all just numbed with a series of behaviors and denial. And I continued on that path through children for another year and a half or so. I continued to have the big job and try to manage the kids. And I married the guy because we were pregnant, and it all looked like it was just wrapped up in this pretty pink bow. But the reality is I was in moral decay, and had been for a long time, and I didn't realize it. But any story of addiction, there is a point at which you just start a decline. For some people it's quick, for some people it's not so quick, but you start to bottom, and nothing matters anymore besides escaping those feelings that you're feeling, and those things that you don't want to accept about yourself, and those changes that you don't know how to make. And so you retreat into a world where you don't have to think about it because your mind is numb. At the end, I was doing nothing right. I was not a good mother. I was not a good wife. I was not a good employee. I was not a good person. I wasn't somebody that anybody really wanted to be around unless we were out partying.
What do you mean you weren't a good mother? Like, what kinds of...
I mean, I loved my children. They were little babies. They were more of a possession for me. I wasn't home when they woke up. I wasn't really home when they went to bed. I had a great nanny. And I thought that was what being a good mother was about. But I was most of the morning, certainly the weekends, I was way too hungover to get up with them in the morning. I was ill prepared at best to actually be a parent. When I was there, I wasn't really there. But I wasn't there at work either. And I wasn't there in my marriage, and I wasn't there for my friends. And I was just kind of this person who did not know what they wanted, didn't have any sort of moral compass. This life that had worked for me for so long was no longer working. I definitely remember having those thoughts. But then what do you do? My job exploded because I was just not doing a good job, and you don't stick around those places. Luckily, I got to walk away rather than being thrown out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just mutually agreed that this wasn't working. I wasn't happy where I was. I changed companies about a year before that, and I wasn't happy with where I was, and they were not happy with me. They paid off the rest of my contract. So I was like, hey, I've got 9 months of free, I was being paid to basically walk away. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to take some time off, and won't this be great? I can party and I can.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. I was like, this is great. They're paying me to stay at home, and I'll hang out with my kids a little bit more, and we can travel and we can party, and it's just going to be so. And then I'll go back, and then I'll go back to another firm. But all of a sudden, interestingly enough, when I was out of that world, when I was no longer in that world, I was like, I didn't know who I was anymore. I was this mother. I was like a stay-at-home mother. Ew. Right? Like, what is that? And I was like leaving my apartment in the morning because the nanny would show up and I had no place to go. And I would walk out of my apartment building because I didn't want to hang around with the kids and the nanny. And I literally did not know which way to turn because I had nothing to do.
Kind of symbolic, huh?
It really is. I did not identify as a mother. I did not identify as a wife. Those were just things that I got. But the one thing that I identified was with being that person on that trading desk who was with those guys and was one of the guys. And all of a sudden I wasn't anymore. And, you would have thought that I would have been like, well, I got to get back into that world. But instead I was like, I can't go back there. My time there is done.
You knew then?
I did. I knew that once I got out of it, it's like anything. Like, I think it's like abusive relationships. You get out of them and you're like, what the heck was I doing in that? And that was really, really, really hard because then you have to take a look at yourself and what can I do? And what am I capable of? And for me, I just really just kept using drugs and alcohol.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That went on. And not for much longer. It's cool when you're out with your friends, your work
it's so
people.
Funny, yeah.
It's no longer. And
when you're a successful trader.
Right. Now I'm not. And it was pathetic.
Now you're just a stay-at-home drunk.
I'm just a stay-at-home drunk drug addict. And that was devastating for me. I didn't realize how much of who I was caught up in that world until I was out of it. My husband at the time said, you need to do something. You need to get help. And I didn't really know what that meant. But I had grown up as a child of an alcoholic. So I knew that there was such a thing out there. And I'd been to meetings like Al-Anon, and I thought they were so stupid. Oh my God. I just couldn't even understand how that could help anybody. But I went, I had nothing else to do. Right. So I might as well go. But I had no intention of stopping. None.
Wow. Okay.
I was just like, I'm going to go and I'll make him happy and I'll make people happy who think that I need to go. But it was really just to shut everybody up. Anybody who's gone through that journey knows that anything you put before your sobriety, you lose. So I had to put that first and foremost before my children, before my husband, before my family. And that had to be the most important thing in my life. And that was not an easy thing for me to accept. And it was not an easy journey for me to start. When I walked into that room the first time, I remember seeing a woman around my age, and she had 11 years of sobriety. And I was like, what? Like, how does anybody do that? That's like not even possible. That's just ridiculous. Like, what kind of life does she have? When does she have any fun? But you start to listen to people who have what it turns out you want, and you listen to their stories of getting there, and it starts to be like, wait, I want that. I want to feel like that. They were so centered and calm, and no matter what life threw at them, they were okay with it. And I was not like that. And I wanted that so badly. I wanted to be that person. And I wanted to be that person who could be calm and not be dramatic and not be arms flailing at all times. I turned into like this completely unformed piece of clay from at least what I thought was a statue, a bronze statue. And it turns out I was a unmolded piece of clay in the mud. And so there's this process of building back up again and becoming this person who you really are, or who you want to be, or who you're growing into. when you thought that you were that person and you thought you were so strong and you thought you had it all figured out, and realizing that you don't have it all figured out and it's okay.
So I didn't talk about it in the beginning of the episode, but I'm up here at Aimee's house in Rhinebeck, and it's the most beautiful weekend ever. So Aimee was so generous and nice enough to invite me to her meeting this morning. It's not what people think. I feel like the way that I've always looked at AA is similar to how you're describing how you felt about it when you were in the throes of all this. I can't imagine not drinking. What would that life be like? That would suck.
It's deprivation.
Every
right?
day you're so boring, and the world knows you have a problem. You know you have a problem. You're just in this like gross room in the basement of a church, because that's usually where they are. And, you're just with a bunch of other people that have all these problems. Like, I never could relate to it. And just this meeting alone, it's not necessarily about whether they drank a lot or did a lot of drugs or anything. It's that search for happiness and that fulfillment that they've all of a sudden realized. And I think you realized when you started listening, you said that's when it became about you. You were doing it out of obligation for your husband and your friends that thought you had a problem. But then when you started to open up your ears and listen, you realized this is for me.
Absolutely.
And
because it has to be. You can't do it for anybody else.
You can't.
Nor should you, because really at the end of the day, it's not about perfection. It's about progress, and it's about every day kind of looking at yourself and examining why do I do this? Why did I do that? What are my reasons for whatever it is that I'm doing? And really self-reflection, sure. And that has nothing to do at the end of the day with being an alcoholic or a drug addict, because Stephen, you're on the same path of examining your motivations for things, your drivers, this journey that you're on, and how you can make it the best journey possible. And I'm certainly not here today to be like, yay, AA, it's the best, because it's just a vehicle for that self-reflection. And when I first had a conversation with you, and I did not know that you were kind of embarking on this journey of your own, but you mentioned it, and you were saying things like gratitude, inward reflection, like meditation, and and I was thinking to myself, wow, this person is embarking on the same journey that I am for different reasons. It's not for you, it wasn't a necessary thing because you had a problem with an addiction. It was something in yourself that you said, I don't want to live this way anymore. I don't want to be so full of angst all the time. And I don't want to be fearful. And I don't want to be dramatic. I think for me, at this stage, for me, it is about learning how to recognize the signs of things that might need to be tweaked a little bit or might need to change. And I'll give you a kind of a funny example, but I thought for me, it was so poignant. The other day, I'm going to say it was a week ago, I was sending somebody a text message, and I was running late, and the text message was supposed to say on my way. And instead it said in my way. And I just pressed the I instead of the O. And all of a sudden I looked at it and I kind of giggled. And then I thought, am I in my way?
Oh my God.
Am I in my way? And is the universe, my higher power, the universe, my energy trying to tell me that I'm in my own way?
That is crazy.
And I was actually in my way. I thought to ask myself that question. And that to me is progress, because the answer was yes. And I was able to kind of right myself and get out of my way. Mm-hmm. And the universe, and whatever that means to you, to me, gives me signs.
I feel like it's even more difficult in the world that you were in than I could ever imagine. I mean, that takes so much strength and bravery, and I want to commend you for that, because, oh my gosh, I can't even relate. But
it was not a brave move, but thank you. It was not out of bravery that I did it. It was an act. I fell into it.
There are people that never fall into it, that it takes over their lives. Don't you think?
Yes.
There are people that live that. Are there colleagues of yours that are still there?
Yes.
Yeah. that, maybe didn't have the wherewithal or the self-awareness to look inward.
Well, but I don't credit my inward looking to the whole change. I kind of I fell out of it because I couldn't sustain it any longer.
Yeah.
But happily it led me to the place that I'm in today. But I wish that I could say I was so brave. I got out of it. I don't feel that. Maybe it's the case, but I don't feel that. I feel like I crashed and I burned and I walked away in shame, even though I didn't. But that my perception of that is that I walked away.
You don't think it was your universe's way of saying you're in your way?
It's an interesting perspective. Yeah, maybe.
That
maybe
the crash and burn was maybe your body's way of telling you, like, this is enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut this down if you're not going to mentally, and we're gonna revamp some stuff.
I guess if I'm telling you the truth, I probably need to examine that a lot more than I have. I was suffering from a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder from 9/11, which I eventually have to address. And I was suffering from addiction, but I guess I need to give myself more credit for that.
I think you do.
And I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. I don't like to give myself. I have to struggle to give myself credit for things.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to work on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's super helpful to yourself to say I failed and I walked away in tattered pieces. Yeah. Because who is that really helping? That's not helping anyone.
And it's not true. It's not true.
I don't think it is.
I didn't. I did walk away with my pride intact, but
yeah, but look at where you are now. Do you think that if you were able to come out where you are now, that it ever would have been a byproduct of you were just a piece of garbage? And that's
no. I credit my journey into self-awareness and sobriety with everything that I have gotten since it. Because since, like I said, if you put anything before that, you will lose it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Anything that goes before it is gone. So I don't put anything before it. And people are like, what about your children? What about I'm like, they wouldn't be in my life if I didn't have that.
Right.
They wouldn't, nothing would be there for me. I can't even imagine. We're sitting in my family room and I'm looking at a wall of pictures of my family
so
and various people and various things we've done and pets and none of that. There is not one thing on that wall that would be there today in my life if I hadn't done what I did.
I think that's a wall of your bravery.
It's my life. It's the people that I love and the animals that I love and everything on there is because I'm going to start to cry. Everything on there is because I was able to take that leap. It's not perfect.
But you said it's about progress.
It is progress, not perfection, every single minute of the day. And I'm very hard on myself. I demand.
Oh my gosh.
To think that
we're all so similar because we're all doing that.
Hard on ourselves. Yeah. Why are we like that? We're not hard on other people. We give other people such a break. Oh my God. But I'm so critical of myself and my actions and my everything. And I work every day. I have to work on that. And I am.
When you made this change, what transpired after when you really got into recovery and you took, I'm guessing the nanny went out the window, not literally, but.
Yeah, no, I didn't kill her. So I started on this journey and it was really very, very selfish for a while. I was just like, I just need to focus on this and me. And after a year of sobriety, I started to kind of come out of the fog and start to say, okay, so I am at a place now where I can start to visualize some sort of a different future for myself.
That's amazing.
I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. The rooms acknowledge that you are in a fog. They call it a pink cloud, where everything is perfect and I'm sober and it's so good and I'm so lucky. But after a year, you kind of go, okay, well, wait, no, I'm this new person. I'm starting to evolve into this new person. What does that mean for my life? What is it? How am I going to carry that forward and make something of it and do something? What am I going to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? Even though I was 40 at the time. I felt very empowered, and I'm like, I can do whatever I want. What do I want to do? I was lucky, I was lucky to have choices. For me, it was about education. I wanted to re-educate myself in a certain way, or whatever. I don't really know what that way was, but I wanted to do something challenging. I wanted to do something fulfilling. I went back to architecture school, and it was a challenge. It was creative, and it was using a part of my brain that I didn't think I even had. And I wanted to be challenged by something. I remember my first day of my first class, and I'm sitting there, I'm 40 years old, and I'm sitting there with a bunch of 19-year-olds. I'm looking around going, what am I doing here? It must be crazy. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to learn. I think it was like an engineering class or something. And I was like, wait, I do know. I actually remember feeling my brain kick back in again. I can do this. And I walked out of that class. I was like, I can do this. And that feeling, after embarking on this relatively short journey at that point of realizing that I can be this person that I want to be. I can at least start down that road, and then going back to school and saying, I can do this. I can start fresh, and I can learn and be. And it was just the most exhilarating time in my life to be. I was working so hard, 100 hours a week in the studio, in classes that were very challenging. And I was so old compared to these people. And they thought I was like, what is she doing here? And but I've never felt so invigorated in my life as being sober and being of clear mind and learning, and just like I was a sponge. And you are never, ever, ever too old to do that. It doesn't matter if you are 80, 100, 25. We lose that when we get older. We're like, well, I don't have the ability. I can't go back to school. I can't learn anymore. I'm too old. Bullshit.
You should be doing it every day.
You should be doing it every single day of your life. And I bet you there are people who are going to be like, blah, blah, blah. Like, really? Who do you think you are? I am nobody. I am nobody different than you are. I just kind of believed that I could do it. The universe was telling me that I had way more to do and to go and to be. And I just embrace it. And believe me, I have days where I feel way, way less than. We all do. But mostly I feel like I don't ever want to stop learning. I don't ever want to stop growing. I don't ever want to stop and go, okay, I've had enough. And now I'm just going to rest on my laurels. Because that's the fun part.
And it's funny because you removed all the distractions from your life, like the drugs and the alcohol and the lifestyle that you were living. And once those were gone, it's like the clouds cleared, and the things in your life that you think you could never give up are the things that are getting in the way of what could be.
Absolutely. Well said, Stephen. They were the things getting in the way. And once I stripped them out and I was a clean slate, yep. I'm just getting started. And that at any age, that makes you feel like the world, there's a place for you in the world, and you can make a place in the world. And it makes you want to get up every morning and do that, be that person. And that's a gift that I never thought I'd have. So that's pretty cool.
If you could go back in time when you were feeling your lowest low, what advice would you give to yourself?
I certainly would go back to that person who was in their 20s and say, chill the fuck out.
Yeah. I love it.
But, and I would do that. But yeah. Don't think I would say, no, don't go on this path, because it's going to lead you to, because it's led me here.
I know.
And every single thing that happened to me, good and bad, has led me to this place. And I do have a lot of young women in my life, and people I work with. I have nieces who are in their 20s. I do look at them and think, oh my gosh, just chill out. Take it in stride. Mm-hmm. Don't get so caught up in, who you want the world to think you are as opposed to who you are. at the end of the day, I would not have listened to that advice myself, and because I thought I knew better. And there was something nice about getting older because you have wisdom that you just did not have when you were in your 20s. So it's just go on the ride and just look at it like just a big ride and a big wave that you're on, and
Yeah, I
everything
love that.
culminates in who you're going to be at any specific point in time. It's all really good. It feels good to be here.
That's so nice. I love that. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for themselves. They're you, yourself, and why. What makes them happy, what brings them fulfillment and meaning, however that's represented in their minds, fame, money, notoriety, prestige, family, charity. How would you describe to the audience what finding yourself looked like and what it means to you today?
Finding yourself is a truly a journey. It's a culmination of all of your experiences, good and bad, and all of the people that you have been along the way and all the people that you have met along the way that makes you who you are. So to anybody who's embarking on a journey of finding themselves, I don't wake up and say, I have found myself. I wake up and think that I want to do that. And, I've got these young daughters, these young women in my life who I'm trying to help find themselves. They don't know who they are.
I don't think any of us knows who we are. We're all
Nobody.
learning all the time.
And just understand that who you are is not who you'll be. And that's okay. And that's a good thing. You have to take a first step, right? You have to make that first leap of and I think the first leap, and it's very similar to, the 12 steps of where you kind of say, turn it over and you say, I am not the center of the universe. There is this big world out there of things that revolve around each other. And I am a small part of that. And I've got to hand it over. I've got to get up in the morning and realize that I am an evolution of a process. And today I'm going to just do the best job I can at living this day. And you will fail miserably some days. But at the end of the day, it is a process, and finding yourself, just take that first step.
Right.
Just take a little baby step. Do something different out of your comfort zone. Something that makes you feel good, something that betters you in some way in your own eyes. And just keep doing that.
Yeah. I have this quote here that I want to read to you. You're always one decision away from a totally different life. I love that quote.
I love that
because it's all about taking the action.
Right.
That's why I don't want you to ever discredit yourself for the bravery that it took to make that change in your life. You may think that you were this tattered, weak person that just tail between their legs walking away, but that was, you walked away. You made that conscious decision. And that was all part of this progressive journey to this wall of pictures, right?
Yeah.
And that's the end. That's your gratitude wall, right?
It is. I just don't remember making that. It wasn't a conscious decision. I guess maybe that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't be like, I'm going to be brave and do this new thing.
Well, you went to the meeting.
That was a big
back.
step, and I kept going back, and I went to school and I tackled that. But
seriously, how can you not think about how amazing that is?
I do understand all that. I just don't think that. I guess maybe because they were just small, gradual things.
You think of me as being amazing. I know you do because you tell me day in and day out, and I love you for that. And I'm doing it back to you.
Yeah,
okay?
I'm not very good at taking that, am I?
Right, because you're too hard on yourself, right? But if it's scary, I've learned that it's probably right for you. Things that scare you are right for you. And that discomfort means that you're shedding skins and evolving. There's this one podcast that I listened to called Lightworkers Lounge, and she calls it the fear fence. She said on the other side of that fear fence is greatness. You just have to get over the fence.
Absolutely. And definitely do what you should do with something that scares you every day.
Because that's what brings you to life.
It really does. And it doesn't have to be something huge, just something small.
Right. Yep.
We were, Steve and I'm laughing because we were out to brunch and, I wanted to talk to somebody. And I was like, I want to be friends with this person, but I don't know how to, like, ooh, it's weird. Well, I seem pathetic. And you were like, you just have to do it. Just do it. Just say something. And it was so juvenile of me. Like, what am I, in high school? Like, the popular
But
boy.
that's how we
I don't want
are.
to talk to him. But I just was like, hey, what's going on? What do you have planned for the rest of this hot day or something like that? And he was, of course, super nice and cute.
Very cute.
And it was just, but it was like, yeah, it's like the littlest thing. Like, is that a big deal? No, it's not. But if I didn't do that, I probably would have been like, why didn't I do that? So stupid little things. You don't have to jump out of an airplane.
Right.
You can just
That was your act of
one
bravery.
little thing that scares you just a little bit, or you don't want to do. If you don't want to do it, you should definitely do it.
Do
If you
it.
don't want to do it.
Take the action.
Yeah, that's very true.
I love that. And that was very brave of you. All right. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey. And there's this other quote that I want to read to you. It's from an Instagram account that I listen to called Raise the Vibe Tribe. And here's the quote. One day you will tell your story of how you've overcome what you're going through now, and it will become part of someone else's survival guide.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Don't you love that?
I love that.
That's why I believe sharing is so important.
Tattoo that on my body.
I know. I want.
It's long.
I
though.
saved it. I saved it in my Instagram.
That is so cool.
I'll send that to you.
I love that.
And it just so embodies the sharing. That's how I got started on this.
Yeah.
Sharing is so important to, and you sharing with me, I'm so grateful that you do that. You've been so supportive. We've gotten so close because of this, right? And I'm so grateful for you, for that, for everything that you do for me and supporting me. You've just, the moment that I told you, you're, oh my God, so excited for me. Like, that is what it's all about. That's the connections that I'm making with people through being authentic. Just be who you are and be honest and true. And that will gravitate like a magnet. People that are on that same vibrational level will just stick to you. And that's totally what happened with us. Like, what a gift,
true.
right?
It really is. And I want to thank you for being part of my journey too, because it's your journey. We're on separate journeys, but we're kind of on it together now.
Yeah, there's a lot of intersections.
And that's so much more fun, isn't it?
All right. Thank you so much. Just some housekeeping stuff. As always, thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email me at info@youyourselfandwhy.com. I'll be including show notes on my website, youyourselfandwhy.com, with links to whatever we talked about. I don't think we referenced a whole lot of external links, but I will put in time-stamped show notes just for everyone to follow along if they want to read the progress of the show today. Episode 5, that was amazing. Thank you again. I love you.
So nice to be here.
You can follow me on Instagram at youyourselfandwhy. Send me a DM about anything. I am available on iTunes. I would love a review or a rating because that helps bring attention to what we're doing and the mission that I'm on right now to share everything to help people. And I love you guys. I love you all. I love you, Aimee.
Love you, Steven.
Thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon.